Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by BadgerBlitz.com publisher and editor-in-chief John McNamara. Great to see you as always, buddy.
Good to see you this morning, Matt.
Woo, yeah. As we speak here on a Wednesday morning, John, sometimes I think that Wisconsin athletics just does whatever the opposite that we say. Whatever the previous time that we recorded is. We're getting excited about the basketball team, and then they laid an egg this weekend against Oregon. Bounce back against Washington, John, here. So before we get in, we're going to flip it up a little bit today. We're going to start with basketball. A relatively easy victory over Washington last night, John, but I think it was very needed after that absolute meltdown against Oregon over the weekend.
Yeah, a bad Washington team in a game that, if you want to do the stuff that you'd like to do in terms of seeding, a game that you had to win, I think. And, they came out and performed, I think, really well. Maybe the bigger takeaway is that John Blackwell, I guess he's rebounded, or you needed a really nice performance from him, and you got that. So, being able to rebound after a tough loss, take care of business, and move into Michigan State prep, I think was really important for this group. I think it's kind of what differentiates this group from maybe last year or even, a team 2 years ago is that, if you slip up, you don't let it continue on into game 2 and game 3. They blew a huge lead, 17 points against Oregon, but you come back and beat a Washington team pretty soundly. That's impressive, even though, like I said, that's not a good Washington team, but that's a good win for Wisconsin as they now move on to Michigan State in a pretty significant game coming up for them.
It was a pretty impressive performance for Xavier Amos coming off the bench as well. I thought that he obviously was a big key in why they were able to get, to extend that lead.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy on this team where, you see flashes of it where – you see why Wisconsin wanted him in the portal. And I think that, you could have made an argument before the season started that he was maybe the most intriguing guy that they brought in via the portal. Obviously, John Tonje has taken that title and run with it. He's likely the best transfer that they've added, through the portal. So he's given you little signs of what he's able to do. He's big, he's athletic, and he can shoot. Now, if it all kind of comes together, that's what you're looking for him. But, each and every night he looks a little bit more comfortable on each side of the ball for Wisconsin, and he could be a really big weapon off the bench as you go into this postseason play here. So, like you said, Matt, a really good encouraging sign from a guy like Xavier Amos, who I think Wisconsin's going to rely on as you go into March. Played 15 minutes, but 12 points. I think those are big minutes that, potentially with a guy like Max Klesman out, we don't really know. He didn't play much beyond, I think, like 5 or 6 minutes of yesterday's game. So he's a guy that now he moves up a little bit in that rotation. I think they feel, probably pretty confident about his ability to contribute too as well.
Well, calendars turning to March. It might not be officially the postseason yet, but I think the game at Michigan State this weekend is going to feel like a postseason game for both teams. John, what's the matchup that you are most, keen on watching this weekend when Wisconsin heads to the Breslin Center?
Yeah, I think, maybe it's lost a touch of the luster after that Oregon loss. I think that, Michigan or Michigan State likely wins the Big Ten, but obviously a significant game. Wisconsin can make up a little bit of ground there and, obviously improve their standing in the Big Ten tournament and obviously in the NCAA tournament as well. Going back to that Oregon game, I'm most curious to see if Tom Izzo ratchets it up, that pressure, specifically if they try to press Wisconsin right away in that environment, in the Breslin Center, how Wisconsin can handle that. If a guy like, Klesman's out, another ball handler, again, I don't want to speculate. We don't know. We don't have an update from guard just yet. Maybe you'll get that a little bit later in the week. But, if Klesman's not playing or he's limited, that's a ball handler that you're going to be down. That's more minutes on Kamari McGee. That's more minutes on John Blackwell. Jack Janicki, I think that, you saw his ability to play in an environment like Purdue, extended minutes. So, I'm just curious to see if the Spartans ratchet up that defense, how Wisconsin's able to handle it, because that's something that is now on tape from what Oregon put out there, and that's something that Wisconsin struggled at. maybe it was a one-night thing. Maybe they can handle that pressure, but I certainly think that Tom Izzo is going to look at that film and be like, I think there's a lot of things that we can do against that Wisconsin offense to try to slow them down a little bit. As crazy as that sounds, you don't say that a whole lot, covering the team for almost 20 years to try to slow down the Wisconsin offense, but it's a different time, different era for Greg Gard.
If Wisconsin is turning the ball over at the same pace that they did against Oregon, it's going to be a very, very long game against Michigan State, because that's the only thing that was keeping Oregon in it. In my opinion, was just the season high in turnovers, 17, 19, something like that in that game.
Yeah.
If that happened against Michigan State, it's going to be, they're going to get boat raced.
I think that's on the table. But again, that to rebound and play the way you did against Washington, I think is encouraging, where this is a kind of a one-off. And I've heard people make the argument that, that was a good loss against Oregon. I don't know that I buy into that. Like, I get like where that talk show radio point comes. Like, yeah, it may be like a reality check. Like, hey, we could lose these type of games, but I think this team is too veteran, too experienced to need a loss in order to have that wake up call. But if it served that purpose, then so be it. I think that's a good thing for Wisconsin. But we'll see. I like that they got some long prep now, right? I mean, Tuesday you play, you don't play till Sunday. You can really kind of dive into that tape and get that good scout for Michigan State. Wisconsin's at times they've played well at the Breslin Center. I don't think that's going to be an atmosphere that they're shying away or going to back away from. But that's a good Michigan State team, and a Michigan State team that always seems to play well around this time under Tom Izzo over the last 25 years or however long he's been there. So it's just a tough matchup at this time of the year. And look, I think Wisconsin's going to be up to the task. I have a hard time picking against the Spartans on Sunday.
I think a lot of us will have a hard time picking against the Spartans this weekend, just because it's the Breslin Center. I feel like it could cascade very quickly.
I think a 4-point deficit could quickly turn to 12 or 13, like in the blink of an eye in one of those games. And you've seen it, you've seen Wisconsin do it as well. But yeah, that's like you said. I mean, all the things that go into playing a Michigan State team at this time of the year at home. That's a tough one for Wisconsin, but we'll see. We'll see how they do on Sunday.
Well, let's head over to the football team. Pretty quiet front over there at the moment, with a couple offers going out here and there. But I think sort of the big topic, or one of the big topic amongst at least us, John, has been still sort of where does the quarterback and running back positions end up here in the 2026 class. Ryan Hopkins is a name that's been bandied about, but Brody McWhorter is someone we've started to see bubble up a little bit more, and it sounds like John, that he is going to be coming in for at least one sort of visit this spring. But what's the latest let's start with the quarterback class. What's the latest in the 2026 quarterback class for the Badgers? And is there anyone else we need to know besides those two names?
Yeah, those are the guys that I'm really kind of focused on right now. And it's interesting because, I've come on here before, and I don't know if you feel the same way, Matt, but this felt to me like a 2-quarterback class. And the way that they're recruiting, it seems to be like they feel like they want to take one guy in this class. And, whether that's the right decision, wrong decision, I'm not the one to ask, I suppose. But, the two guys right now are ironically like two guys who were Phil Longo targets that this current staff has said, yeah, that we're going to continue to recruit these guys. I mean, you start with a guy like Brody McWhorter. He trimmed his list to, I believe, 7. Auburn's there, Colorado, Indiana, Mississippi State, easy for me to say, Syracuse, and West Virginia. Wisconsin's going to get him on campus late April for his official visit. He might be the only kid up there because we don't have anyone else pegged for that weekend. So it'd be interesting to see, if the entire coaching staff spends the weekend with him. Obviously, lead recruiter there, Kenny Guyton. With those 7, I feel like Wisconsin's trailing a little bit in that race, probably towards the bottom, half of that 7. But anything can happen when you get a guy on campus. I don't know if there's a clear-cut favorite, but I do feel like there's some programs that are a little bit ahead of Wisconsin at this point right now. But, he'll get up there. He's been on campus before. He'll get up there in late April for his official visit. And I think Ryan Hopkins, to me, is probably the more realistic target here. He's expected up in the spring. He's a guy that's talked about potentially deciding before official visits. And, we had an update on him, I think, within the last week or so from Adam Gorney. Too early to say, like, with certainty, but it sounds like Wisconsin, Missouri, and then a lot of other schools competing with those two at the top. So, if you get a guy like Hopkins, they feel really good about him. He was a guy that Phil Longo offered, in the later stages of his tenure at Wisconsin. And then, obviously Wisconsin, Kenny Guyton, Grimes, Jeff Grimes took a look at the tape and said, yeah, we're going to continue to recruit this guy. And they feel like they're in a good spot with him. So of the two, I think Hopkins is much more realistic. But we'll have to see once these guys get on campus and really start to narrow their focus. And things with with quarterbacks happen quickly. I could see these guys both being done, by the spring, in both of their recruitments.
Will they have anyone to hand the ball off to in their class? Because for 2025, no running backs coming in. So and no running backs obviously in the bag yet for 2026. Is there anyone that they're actually going to be able to hand the ball off to, or is it just going to be let's hope Dupree and Jones and Atuka stick around for 5 years?
Yeah, I think the last time we talked, we didn't have a running back that was pegged in for an official visit. Now we do have one in Jamal Rule. The more I look at Rule, the more I like him. He's a bigger back, 6 foot, 6'1", 205 pounds. He's going to visit that second weekend in June, or that June 5th weekend. Also going to take a trip to Arkansas. He's someone that's a more recent offer from Wisconsin. So, there's been some long-time targets that I think have kind of fallen off the board, and you've seen some of these new guys emerge, and Jamal Rule certainly fits that bill. Like I said, he's going to visit Wisconsin. Actually, I think it's the first weekend, so that late May into June weekend for Wisconsin. Just like quarterback, I felt like this could potentially be a 2 running back class for Wisconsin. I think they'd take Rule, and they'd certainly take a guy like Amari Latimer, too, has been a longtime target for the staff that's been linked to them. The Badgers just took his brother in the portal, a cornerback who is expected to contribute right away this fall. So that, to me, again, like you talked about, Matt, they didn't take someone in 25. I feel like they'll take 2 in 26. And Jamal Rule is, right up there at the top because he's going to be there for an official visit. And I don't want to say it's a pecking order in terms of priority, but those top targets, they want to get them there in that May 29, 30th window to get them up and try to lock them down and make sure they don't take any other visits after that. And they've had some good success over the last 2 cycles doing that.
Yeah, and you've seen them, target the guys that they have really deemed high priority, lock in and get them, and then be able to, for the most part, hold on to them up until signing day. And that's going to be something that's interesting to track as we move forward, especially, without Maximus, who's already flipped one of the top quarterbacks in the country to USC since he got down there. So, I'm sure that people will be tracking that very closely.
Yeah, he's off to a good start. Wish Max the best. He's a good dude. He's got more resources. Nice to bring a kid out to California anytime you want. With Wisconsin, it's like, let's get him here in June. Let's get him out, get him on the lakes. But Max could do that 365 days a year in his spot now in Los Angeles.
Well, John, before we wrap up here today, what are you noticing? Like, what's just like, what's sort of the vibes in general around the athletic department here as we sort of head into the spring? Because, there's excitement around the basketball program, but then you get an Oregon game that completely deflates everyone. And I'm getting text messages say, this is why I will never believe in guard. I don't know. We had Brian Calhoun on with me and Bernie the other day. And he's, a very honest appraiser of the Wisconsin program, but even he's like a little bit optimistic about Grimes, but it's still a wait and see attitude. Sort of, where do we stand here as the calendar turns to March? Yeah,
I think that, Luke Fickell and his group probably owe Greg Gard a nice pat on the back or a thank you, because I think more people are invested into this basketball team than in past years. And I think it largely has to do with their success, right? That's an easy place to start. But the brand of basketball that they're playing, I think, is appealing to fans who are now just kind of tuning in. Maybe that you have a chunk that football up until the Super Bowl. And now I'll turn my attention to college basketball. So I think Greg Gard has done the university a big favor by, if you're a disgruntled football fan, you could latch your wagon onto the basketball program and have a really good time over the next couple of weeks. But pro days coming up for Wisconsin early March, and that's the start of spring camp. So it's a little quiet around the football program right now. Obviously, they're doing workouts and they're putting a little bit on social media here and there, but it's a monster spring camp, summer, fall camp for them coming up here. For just everyone involved in that program. So, Luke Fickell, hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to him when he kicks off spring camp in just a couple days here. They're going to have another big junior day coming up on March 8th. So it's, way back in the day, you had these natural quieter periods. In the landscape now, when you have these quieter periods, it seems very unnatural because there's just it's every day there's something going on. So we have a brief pause here that I think I'm enjoying, you're enjoying, but it's going to ramp up soon here with, like I said, pro day, a big junior day, right into spring camp. I think we're going to have really good access from a media point of view. So hopefully, we can give you guys a lot of good information about spring and, what the almost 40 new guys in the program kind of look like. So it's kind of the calm before the storm, I would say, before things really ramp up here in a couple days.
Well, like John said, you definitely need to be subscribing to BadgerBlitz.com for all the best informations and message boards and all that good stuff anywhere in the known universe when it comes to the Wisconsin Badgers and the athletic department over there. We appreciate everyone tuning in here to Badger Blitz TV. Until next time, he's John McNamara and I'm Matt Perkins, and we'll see you in the den.